Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome you again to the Cairo Climate Talks. Tonight was a very interesting discussion about energy efficiency. We are honored by our guests, His Excellency Dr. Khalid Fahmy, the Minister of Environment, and His Excellency Julius Louis, the Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany. We are going to also have an interesting discussion on our panel. Today we are going to have it a little bit more interactive amongst the panelists. We will have some questions and the panelists will have a discussion amongst themselves in front of us, which should add a little bit spice to the whole argumentation process. We are not yet as far as to have the public interact as well, so your questions will come within 40 to 45 minutes after we have started. We'll give you a sign. You have all your yellow pieces of paper inside your envelopes, which you put the question on and give to one of our two colleagues who are going to collect those questions from you. I ask Ambassador Julius to come to the podium to give your word, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Indeed, thank you very much, Your Excellency, Dr. Khalid Fahmy, Engineer Mohamed Mehana, Under-Secretary of State for Authorities at the Ministry for Electricity and Renewable Energy, Dr. Hani El-Nokrashi, ladies and gentlemen, and dear and faithful Cairo Climate Talkers. Let me start with a question. What is the planet's most important source of energy in this century, in the 21st century? Oil, coal, gas, nuclear, renewables. A report recently published by the IEA states the most important fuel for the future is energy efficiency. This is because the cheapest energy is the energy we don't use. In times of rising costs for energy and phasing out subsidies, saving energy becomes a crucial economic factor both in Egypt and in Germany. Energy efficiency is something every one of us can take action on. It is something that may pay off already in our next private electricity bill. Policymakers, companies and individuals can take steps to use energy more efficiently and in a more responsible way. And yet, with all the consensus on its relevance and recognition of its importance, energy efficiency tends to be the barely noticeable, the plain wallflower, which is much less prominently in the spotlight than renewable energy. Why are we rarely talking about energy efficiency? Why did it take us 37 rounds of Cairo Climate Talks to tackle this topic? Why does energy efficiency prove to be the most challenging element of the German Energiewende? It is because improving energy productivity hasn't too much public appeal. True, policymakers, companies, individuals can take quick action, but this action is not very exciting. As opposed to other clean technology initiatives, energy efficiency measures give no opportunity to position yourself in front of an impressive, groundbreaking, innovative project. Just as I, together with the Minister of Electricity, did some weeks ago when Africa's largest wind farm in Gabal El Zaid was launched with a festive inauguration ceremony. Instead, energy efficiency is making small, often barely noticeable changes, like constructing a well-isolated building, replacing a dishwasher, or buying LEDs instead of conventional light bulbs. The benefits of measures improving energy efficiency are spread over time, while the cost is upfront. It's there right now. Specifically, Egypt is now at the crossroads, phasing out subsidies for energy and fuel will be reflected in higher electricity bills that become noticeably more expensive for both private households and businesses. But only now that energy is approaching its natural market price, energy is finally attributed its real value in the consumer's preference scheme. And only this triggers the indispensable mindset change. We are starting to feel that energy is no longer free of charge. We will soon have to realize that dressing to the weather might be more cost-effective than cooling down buildings to less than 20 degrees and dressing to the air condition. We will become aware that many of our rooms are over-illuminated and that the lifespan of LEDs really makes a tangible difference. Assuming that higher prices will automatically translate into awareness, the process of cutting subsidies should be accompanied by the provision of a comprehensive set of policies that incentivize to save energy. In this respect, the state might have to set examples to be followed by private households and business. The planning of new towns, for instance, should take into account the energy-efficient construction of buildings, as well as energy-efficient transport solutions. There are many different projects on the way, many diverse blueprints to be found in Egypt when it comes to energy efficiency. These efforts need to be aligned and coordinated. A master plan is yet to be designed. Aside from economic arguments that underpin the importance of energy efficiency, there is also a global responsibility that makes energy efficiency obligatory, cutting CO2 emissions and combating global climate change. In the light of the Paris Agreement, which will be signed in April, states are confronted with nationally determined obligations to reduce emissions in order to halt global warming. Energy efficiency measures will become equally important as switching to renewable energies. Germany is ready to support Egypt in meeting its commitments under the Paris Agreement, and we are eager to include energy efficiency measures in our portfolio. I leave the rest to our experts on the panel and in the audience, invoking and presenting best practice examples as well as giving recommendations for policies and for the next steps to be taken on our common path towards energy efficiency. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Julius. Indeed, Germany has done some very interesting inroads in terms of energy efficiency and implementing energy sustainability. However, now we are going to hear from you, Dr. Fahmy, what the ministry is doing and what are all the interesting plans for Egypt and the future. Welcome to the stage, please.
Your Excellency, the Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany in Cairo, representative of the Ministry of Electricity, Mr. Hani Nukrashi, dear guests, colleagues. First of all, let me just respond that I will have to say what I'm going to address is not what the ministry is doing, but what the government is doing. After all, energy efficiency is a cross-cutting issue. It is not the mandate of one ministry or even one identity. It is more the obligations of government, industry, NGOs, parties. So it's really cross-cutting a lot of institutions that have to work together and address the problem. But I don't like always reading from papers, but sometimes I have to. So in this case, I'll make a mix between what I have, what has been prepared, and what I really want to say. First of all, of course, I'm honored to have the opportunity to address such a distinguished audience, including our well-experienced experts. As you all know, the global community today faces an ever-present set of challenges: climate change, conservation of natural resources, pollution, high pollution levels, in addition to the use of chemicals in various products. Energy efficiency is a key interlinked to many of those challenges that, if applied well, would support reducing the negative impact of those challenges. The beauty of applying energy efficiency is increasingly being recognized as being profitable without subsidies for delivering multiple other non-energy benefits. Among these are higher productivity, job creation, reduced fuel poverty, and improved public health. Globally, two major milestones were achieved last year. Goal 7 of the SDGs, that is specifically about providing clean and affordable energy to all and energy services. COP21, a total of 160 intended national determined contributions, reflecting 187 countries, presenting concrete plans and targets for climate change mitigation and adaptation actions by 2030. And energy efficiency is one of the key mitigation actions in most of those plans. In Egypt, let us look at some numbers. Industry share of total GDP is within over 37%. Meanwhile, total number of public and private industrial establishments account for more than 29,000 establishments and more than 1.8 million workers. The Egyptian industry is responsible for approximately 43% of national final energy consumption and 33% of national electricity consumption. Overall, industry-related emissions account for about 30% of total emissions and will increase, and it is expected to increase to be 36% by 2030. Energy-intensive industries are only 1% of the number of factories, despite consuming 65% of the industry energy share. The final energy consumption per unit of output in the most important industry of Egypt is 10 to 50% higher than the international average. In other words, the Egyptian industry could have produced the same output with almost 20% less energy. There is a huge potentiality of energy efficiency gains reaching up to 25% of total primary energy supply. Ladies and gentlemen, with this in place, the challenges of energy efficiency includes, but is not limited to, growing energy demand that matches the population growth. Fundamentally, there is no actual market for energy efficiency, but rather a number of markets for various equipments and services that result in improved energy efficiency. A lack of understanding and appreciation of the value of the benefits of energy efficiency, both energy efficiency and non-energy benefits. There is a lack of capacity. A lack of understanding and appreciation that for improved energy efficiency to happen, there needs to be simultaneously actions on three fronts: end users, customers, the energy efficiency supply chain, and financiers. A lack of relevant data and difficulties with measurement, in addition to institutional gap in the disbursement of the responsibility among an array of government agencies. But the true bottlenecks lays in the inability to use economic instruments. We have market distortion based on subsidies. Lately, of course, as you know, the government is embarking on a 5-year program to reduce the energy subsidy. It has been implemented and has been implemented so far with very cautious move so as to address the social benefits. There has to be a proven path that whatever reductions are made in the subsidy is moving to the poor through better health industry, through better employment, through better education. This has to be proved so that we can presume and pursue our goal. So government has been working on this, but on the other side, we have been working on introducing the feed-in tariff for the renewables. And very lately, the feed-in tariff was produced for waste-to-energy mechanism. So the government is really embarking and working now with economic instrument, mainly economic instrument, to address market distortions that will or led or have led to energy efficiency. Finally, I just like, since what we are doing in the Ministry of Environment, well, we're working with the Ministry of Industry and with UNIDO, with the Federation of Industry, on a very ambitious project. It's about efficiency in industry. And this project is being, of course, implemented in coordination and cooperation with UNIDO. And let me give you some information, just quick information on the project. The project seeks to address some of the key barriers to industrial energy efficiency, to deliver measurable results, and to make an impact on how Egyptian industry manage energy through an integrated approach that combines capacity building and technical assistance interventions at the policy and energy efficiency project level. The project's ultimate goal is to reduce green gas emissions by establishing a policy environment that enables it and supports sustainable adoption of energy efficient technologies and management as an integral part of industry business practice. An environment in which a cadre of well-trained and equipped experts in the system optimization and energy management assists industries in developing and implementing energy efficiency improvement projects. I'm very honored that you have Mr. Yasser Sharif, who is one of the consultants of the project, and give you more information on it. But finally, I just want to be rest assured that in the Egyptian INDC plan, one of the major cornerstones in addressing greenhouse gas emission is energy efficiency. Our policy or our strategy is based on energy efficiency, on renewable, on extending renewable energy, and this is reflected in very specific activities and programs in certain sectors, mainly, of course, the industry sector, energy, transport. This is where we think that we have a big opportunity, a golden opportunity, to meet our green gas emission targets through energy efficiency in all sectors, especially in industry. And I think this is where our future activities, the very near future activity, will be based. And as I said, this is one of the cornerstones of our plan that we presented in Paris, and that we are now identifying all the details of the implementation. Don't want to talk much. I'll be around for any clarification or questions. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I wish you a very pleasant evening. Thank you.
Dr. Fahmy, thank you very much for the interesting brief. I ask my colleagues, the panelists, to come up for the exams. Again, good evening, everybody. Let me first introduce to you our interesting panel. We have some really substantially knowledgeable personalities sitting with us on the panel with extreme good background experience on energy efficiency and sustainability in general. To my left, I have Dr. Ibrahim Yassin. Dr. Ibrahim is the project manager of the energy efficiency project with the UNDP. To my right, Dr. Kurt Wiesegaard. He is a team leader at ENEC, which is the energy efficiency in the construction sector in the Mediterranean. You have been now in Egypt for quite some time.
Quite a couple of years.
Yes. Dr. Ali Abu Sinna. Dr. Ali is the director of the Egypt National Cleaner Production Center. It is part of the Ministry of Industry and Foreign Trade. Dr. Ali has given all our colleagues here, except for Dr. Yasser, have been present yesterday to interesting discussions. I guess Dr. Yasser will cope on that. Yes, actually. And last but not least, Dr. Yasser Sharif, the managing director of a very interesting consultancy company, which is called Environics. And I will start with the first question. It's actually a very, very simple icebreaker. A question to all four of you. What is energy efficiency? Who wants to start?
Mr. Ambassador, German Ambassador in Cairo, Ministry of Environment. Thank you for inviting me to this important workshop or panel discussion or whatever. There's a difference between energy efficiency and energy conservation. Energy conservation is that you are switch off one part of this electrical load, for example. But energy efficiency, you use the same, you introduce the same service, the customer service with an energy efficient modern technology facilities which will not affect each of, but this energy efficiency, we will have the same service with a modern technology in order to reduce the energy or making an energy saving. So energy efficiently, to use energy with efficient. We don't want, for example, to cut or mandatory, for example, from government to have, but we introduce the same service with efficient way. It means that we use modern technology with less energy and energy saving.
Thank you, Doctor. Dr. Kurt.
Well, actually, it's a simple question, a simple answer. Energy efficiency means to get a certain output with less energy input. Or, in other words, to get a bigger output with the same energy input.
Yeah, for me, actually, the energy efficiency is using less with more. In terms of the industry, which is the energy is something like a very vital element to the industry. Actually, the energy is the industry itself. So we can say that per output of the industry, we try to use less as much as we can. As His Excellency, the Minister of Environment, saying that the current situation in Egypt, that per output of our industry, we are using 10 times more the international benchmark. And this is what we can see in our local industry, that they are using much energy for the same output with much opportunity to reduce this and improve the use of energy. So in just short term, it's using less with more in the production.
I don't think I can disagree, but I will add a single point. Now, producing more output with less input is fine, but I think that we need to also ask the question, do we actually need this output? Because sometimes we produce things that we don't need, like we're producing more cars because cars don't live as much as they used to live. and we're producing it in a very efficient way, but we're producing more. So in fact, we're using more energy, we're exhausting our resources for producing stuff that we need to question whether we need or not.
Thank you very much. I guess this wraps it up what energy efficiency actually is and what we are going to face now with our questioning. I start my first question to Dr. Ali. It's a 3-sentence question and it fits a little bit into the industry. How does Egypt plan to completely phase out electricity subsidies by 2019? And what is the impact on the investment in terms of energy efficiency within the industry? If we imagine that all actors will have to pay a certain real price for energy, would this impact the performance of the industry as well as the consumption of the energy use?
As have been mentioned, that the Egyptian government is embarking on a strategy for phasing out in 5 years the subsidy of the energy, especially for the industry. So this is a very important driver. As all of you know, over the last 3 years, Egypt was facing a very, very big crisis related to the energy. So we are facing not only the energy that you are using, but the availability of the energy itself. It was a problem for most of the industry. So as one of the short-term strategy for the government to have this phasing out of the subsidy, which will encourage the industry to go more and further to the energy efficiency. It was estimated that 20% of the energy used by the industry could be achieved or reduced by energy efficiency only. Energy efficiency is something that you can get a quick win comparing it to the renewable energy, something you can get very, very soon by starting from low cost to no cost measures, medium cost measures, and also high investment measures. So if the question about the industry, they have to accommodate with this, starting working on saying the opportunity in each facility, looking further for more opportunity to achieve the competitiveness, because this is related also to how you will be competitive with on a regional level, on international level, by reducing the cost of your energy. If we're speaking, for example, with the very intensive industry like cement, fertilizers, they are consuming a lot of energy, and the reduction of using and by energy efficiency is huge, could really lead to more using this or reuse it in other industries. So energy efficiency is something very important for our short term. The industry has to work on this. In Egypt, we have different challenges related to policy, institutional, technical, also innovative financing scheme to encourage also promotion of energy efficient equipment. All this is something very important for Egypt to look and start from now. And I can just end it up that 15 years ago, I just remind all of us that Egypt was started with this Energy Planning Institute, our energy planning organization. And many of the staff have been well educated, equipment, everything. And once they started to work, there was no market. So one of the very important role for the government now to create the market for the energy efficiency, and I think this is now undertaken by many measures. and as His Excellency, the Minister of Environment, is saying, that there is now strategy for industrial energy efficiency is now will be approved to pave the way for encouraging the industry to go further with this energy efficiency for the nearest future.
Dr. Ali, thank you very much. I would like to pass part of the question to Dr. Yes.
I just
Actually, we had
want
an
to-
argument outside that you don't believe very much that the
yes,
impact of price is
and I
going
want
to
to
be-
I
yes.
want to say it in front of everyone and see whether they would agree. Now, raising prices is good. You know, industry, for example, will react, right? But it has a certain assumption. We're assuming a competitive market. And that's, I think, the point where we need to be clear that price will not, it's not a magic wand. We know that our market is growing, our internal market is growing because of demographic growth, at least. So it's a demand market. It's driven by the demand. It's always, demand is always growing. And we've seen with the raises, the increases in prices during the last few years, you know, there's always hikes in prices. So it seems like industries, especially the larger industries, have the freedom in this type of market to raise the prices. So the incidence of the price is on the consumer rather than in the industry. They will not consider energy efficiency unless we use a multiple, you know, all the tools that we have. Price will not do it alone. And if we have the chance later on to talk about what we've been doing, His Excellency Dr. Khalid has said about this UNIDO strategy and policy that we helped developing. Maybe we'll take the opportunity later to talk more about it.
But since the price is not the only carrying factor, would this imply that the responsibility is also on the producer and not only on the consumer, i.e. the complete value chain from producer to consumer?
Well, energy efficiency is a culture. And if you have a culture, you have this culture in a society, it should be everywhere. It should be in buildings, it should be in consumers, you know, the way you use the equipment, in production, in transportation, in whatever, right? So the responsibility is all over the place. Now, you have societies and markets that are inefficient, and unfortunately, our society nowadays are one of those. And we have to make the shift from this culture to a different culture.
I might only just comment very quickly that, yes, pricing and increasing prices is very important, but I think also what is very important, the creating an incentive scheme that really encourage the industry to do this. And this is, I think, part of the policy measures that they have to be designed to avoid the risk of this putting all the price increase on the consumer side. So this is, we have to look at the lesson learned from different countries. We are not the only country started this, but has been best practices in different countries that we can really adopt to Egypt.
If you allow me to add some issues to the statement, energy efficiency is a culture. Energy efficiency in a country like Egypt, and that counts for most of the countries here, and this culture is simply not existing. At the moment, it is a vision. And what we have to realize is that the culture, becoming a culture, is not an automatism. That needs to be created. And to my opinion, I had the pleasure yesterday also to give a short presentation. Some of you know my message already. Sorry for being redundant in that case. This process is a clear top-down process. The government has to create the circumstances, and that starts with a regulatory system, that starts with a clear commitment, not only the rules. Now, Egypt has energy efficiency building codes since 2005. But they are not in place, they are not mandatory. Egypt has an energy saving law, which is still not in place. The first step has to be done by the government. I completely agree that yesterday I had the chance to elaborate a little bit more. energy efficiency is a very, very complex system. But again, it has to start from the government to provide the rules, to provide the environment, and then if the commitment is there, then you go the next step. What do I need in order to implement energy efficiency? I need a system, I need the government, I need the governance. I need entities in different, I need energy efficiency entities in different units. Now, Egypt, I'm very happy to realize that, and I would like to come back to one of your first remarks, Your Excellency. Egypt is now about, and this is a big step forward, to establish energy efficiency units in all ministries. A very, very important measure. I'd like to refer to, quoting Your Excellency, Mr. Ambassador. You modified a bit. I come back to the original version. The greenest energy is the energy which is not used. And energy efficiency is an energy source. And to my opinion, I'm fighting for that since years, it's the most important energy source. Coming back, the greenest energy is the energy which is not used. Does anybody know how old this sentence is? This was made by Lovins, the Pope of Energy Efficiency, nearly 45 years ago, you see. Now, we do not need to reinvent the wheel. The wheel is there. We just have to apply it. Therefore, to create the culture is very important. We have, in Western European countries, we have now a certain culture. Please don't misunderstand me. I don't want to say Western European countries are better. But we started in the 70s with energy efficiency measures. One result that clearly came out, and this is also very important, coming back to the subsidies and price reforms. 73, we had the so-called first energy oil crisis, and in 78, the second. Until 73, the barrel price for 1 barrel oil was $2.6. Now, and then we started to think about energy efficiency, not because we had the culture, but because the prices went up. And everybody started feeling it in his own pocket. I still remember when I was a kid, quite some years ago, it was usual to regulate the temperature in the room with a window. If it becomes too warm, open the window. If it becomes hot, or vice versa. You see, because energy costs were negligible. And only after the energy costs went up and everybody felt it in his pocket, and then people start thinking about saving energy, using energy more efficiently, and then the government followed up with respective laws. Regarding subsidies, I do not completely agree with you. And not subsidies, the energy prices. Please interrupt me if I'm too long.
No, go ahead. It's actually an interesting discussion.
Thank you very much. Energy prices. The price mechanism, to my opinion, is a very, very important mechanism. And it normally works in the industry. It works also in the transport sector, simply because if the cost for production, and energy is one factor of the cost, goes up, the industry, a business-oriented company, will start thinking about saving costs. Then let's start with saving energy and coming up with some investment in better drives, in better motors, in better insulation, whatever, in better production facilities. But again, sorry to those who participated yesterday at the meeting, this mechanism does not work in the building sector. And the building sector, we learned that also today in Egypt, the building sector is consuming 45% of the end energy of the electricity in Egypt, 45%. And everybody of us knows how poor most of the buildings are. They are wasting tremendous energy. Yesterday I used the example also, since the audience is bigger. Imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, Egypt has nowadays about 30 gigawatt installed power capacity. If all the buildings in Egypt would follow the energy efficiency building codes, which are in place actually, but not mandatory, and not implemented. If all the buildings would meet the energy efficiency building codes, then Egypt would need only about 20 gigawatt of power plants. Less transmission facilities, less distribution facilities, less CO2 emissions. Therefore, this also somehow indicates the importance of energy efficiency. Sorry for being too long.
Besides efforts for the government, and also awareness is very, very important parallel to the government duties. Actually, when the awareness of the people, of the customer, will be bear in mind to save energy, they will use it, and just awareness raising for the customers, it's very important to this.
One more remark, sorry. I lost my way. Coming back to the price mechanism, it works in the industry, but I started with with energy consumption in the buildings. 45% of end energy are consumed in buildings. The price mechanism does not work in the building sector, simply because, Your Excellency, you are an investor, you are, you are not interested. Well, you are thinking green, you will do, but let me say, let me assume somebody else who is not thinking green like me. I'm not interested to invest in a building with higher costs. That means in wall insulation, in roof insulation, and double glazing. Why should I? Because you are renting my flat, and you are the one who pays the bill, right? Therefore, why should I reduce your electricity bill? And this, again, 45% of electricity are consumed in buildings. That means this gap between the two interest groups needs to be bridged by the government by introducing mandatory energy efficiency building codes. There's no other way.
But
no, I'm sorry, you're not asking the questions you want to ask. But
I wanted to.
The discussion is.
We don't give him a chance.
No, I want
right, I'm sorry. I'm
I
sorry.
wanted to include an
go
element, but you can continue at once. I believe it's going to continue.
Otherwise, we run the risk we cannot answer it.
So,
Does this mean that we need some form of quote-unquote policing of the process, or is this a combination of the cultural awareness, the pricing structure, etc.? Or both, or a more complex issue? Maybe yes, go ahead and comment, and maybe, and then you can continue.
You know what you said, that there are multiple interests in the building, you know, those who build and those who rent. But that's the same issue, you know, the same issue that I mentioned in industry. There are those who buy and those who produce. And if you can have the incidence of whatever price on the other party, you just do it. And this is basically what we're talking about. The issue also is that we have in Egypt now a huge stock of inefficient buildings, of inefficient industrial equipment. So we have to address this. It cannot happen overnight. We have to create the drive to move forward. The issue also is, just to comment on what you said, is that, you know, the code, the building code, the energy efficiency building code is mandatory because this is the code. Now the issue is that when you get a policy, you need to think about the implementation mechanism. You need to train people. You need to make people aware of it. You know, there are architects who don't know that this building code exists, right? So we have a problem there. On the incentive issue, my friend Ali, I've been with my friend Dr. Khalid. We've established, you know, this APAP program, like, was it 17 years ago, 20 years ago? 20 years ago, 20 years ago. We were young then. You know, we were doing this, you know, summer vacation in school. So, the incentive for industry, we've had enough. And I'm saying it, I don't know if anyone from industry is here, we've had enough incentive for industry. We've been giving them incentives for the last 20 years to resolve their environmental problems. Now we have APAP 3, 20 years later, and we're still providing incentives. There's something wrong there. You know, we need to look at and see, you know, we tried stuff, it worked, it improved something, but it did not establish the culture. If the culture is not established, we will just keep on pumping money here and there. Sorry, what was your question? And Dr. Ibrahim wanted to contribute to this.
No. I want to say that the capacity building for the specialists and the awareness for the customers is very important to energy efficiency.
Okay.
Parallel to that.
Maybe just
Dr. Ali,
close
please go
comment about the incentive again. I don't mean that we have to give money for them, but at least if there is a cost to invest in energy efficiency, like for example waste heat recovery, they have to invest a lot of money. So at least there is some appreciation or some incentive for these people to go for these measures. You don't have to give them cash money, but at least if they do reduction of their energy usage, so there's some kind of innovative incentive that encourage others to do this. And this is what I meant by incentive schemes. Yeah.
Let me give you my version of incentive to industry. And this is I'm sorry again. And this is basically
I guess
a part,
it's more interesting if we
a
have
part
debate
of what we had proposed in the policy, you know, that we did for the Ministry of Industry, Ministry of Environment, and was supported by UNIDO. Now, let me give you this example. Now, the government is the major buyer of construction, right, in Egypt and almost everywhere, you know. And construction inputs are cement, iron and steel, ceramics, glass, you know, and bricks. These are all energy-intensive industries. Now, as a buyer, I have the right to put standards on what I procure, right? So we never use this green procurement, this power of the government. It's not policing. You know, it's not checking this and measuring that. It's just putting standards for what I, as a government, buy. This will establish the culture, you know, of energy efficiency. Because people, if you don't change energy efficiency to become a core business issue, and core business for business people is whether you widen the market, whether you protect your market, whether you make more profits, whether you do this or that. So you have to work on this incentive and to use the tools that would make them think that this is the best for them. Otherwise, they would just, you know, transfer the prices to others. But government being a major buyer, and government, mind you, is also a major, not a direct buyer, but with the bread points. You know, they deal with specific companies to put their products for bread points, right? This opens for a food industry a major market. You know, I would be, you know, ready to do whatever to be in this market. So if you told me, you know, you just need to do this energy efficient, blah, 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 you know, I will go ahead and do it. So use your power as a buyer rather than trying to put things that you don't have, like policing, measurement, and this type of thing. So this is what I think could be a good incentive. Incentive after the fact. Rather than paying people to do things, you just let them do the things so that they could get the goodies at the end of the road. You know, so it's still an incentive, but it's just the other way around.
I believe actually that incentives, they blur the picture completely, and from these incentives, the subsidies are, in my opinion, a very strong element. However, electric energy is not the only energy. We have fuel and we have other types of energy. A few days ago, I was driving around in Cairo, and I saw someone driving a Porsche and actually putting fuel for £2.65. So the £2.65 subsidized. So maybe to counter-argue what you are saying, subsidies have to go to the specific end consumer who needs a subsidy. And this is maybe the responsibility of the government here in order to define and to the characteristics how subsidies are going to be distributed. But the complete value chain, in my personal opinion, has to be at its normal price without being subsidized anywhere. I believe, Dr. Kurt, you wanted to respond to Dr. Yasser again.
No, I appreciate your contribution. No. I appreciate your contribution very much, and in most cases, I'm sure we will agree. No, I just want to point out again, this implementation, enforcement of energy efficiency, especially this is our subject, energy efficiency building code. We need to be aware that this is something very, very complex. You see, it starts, and this is still my opinion, I will insist on the opinion, hopefully somebody among you is able to convince me from some other things. The first step has to be taken by the government, and then it's a top-down. It's followed by the developers. If there is a mandatory energy efficiency building code, the developer have to follow. Then the investors will have to follow, the banks. It's just imagine that this goes step by step. The banks, the manufacturers, they need to provide the respective material, the architects and the engineers, and last not least, the occupiers. This is actually a top-down effect. But it starts at the top. And this is nothing to be done from one day to the other, because on every level, sorry for pointing out that very clear, on every level, also on the government level, training is needed. Awareness is needed also on the government level. How can we expect that, beside your Excellency and some of your colleagues, are aware of energy efficiency? But please correct me, I'm wrong. I'm sure there are people in the ministries who are not really yet aware of energy efficiency. Training programs have to be conducted, awareness building has to be made, and this on all levels. Now, I'm just hesitating. Chairman, please help me. Do you think we should dispose of yesterday's secretary for this estimated audience again or not?
Absolutely.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. Now, who is willing, who of you, to do something in energy efficiency, in saving scarce resources, with the effect that 5 years from now, around 5 years, we can save million tons of scarce resources and thousands of kilowatt hours 5 years from now, without any substantial investment, maximum 30, 40 pounds, Egyptian pounds, without any impact, negative impact on your way of life, on your comfort of life, without investing much time, maybe half a minute per day. Who is willing to do that? Please raise your hand.
Pay the 30 pounds?
Less than 30 pounds. Less than 30 pounds.
Well,
Less than 30 pounds.
I assume you don't need to invest, maximum 10.
I'll pay for me and for the other ministers.
Maximum 10% of the people here have to invest, the others don't have to invest. Okay, then do the same starting tomorrow morning, or I give you another day, the day after tomorrow morning. When I have my shower in the morning, I have a ball between my legs. I'm collecting the gray water. I'm collecting the water of the washing machine, which comes out in a bath tube. And I'm using this water for flushing the toilet. I don't need any more drinking water quality for flushing the toilet. And I calculated it. Now we are about 100 people here. You start tomorrow, and you tell your friends, convince your friends. Your friends will convince other friends. And I made a rough calculation. Don't ask me exactly how I did it. We can modify it, either 3 million tons of water or 5 million tons of water. It depends on your willingness to do that and on the willingness of your friends. And thousands of kilowatt hours of electricity which will not be used anymore for pumping. You see, we are always blaming. It's so easy now to you come here, I come here, say some very clever words and make some clever presentations. You are listening to these more or less clever presentations. But we are, same as the government, Government has a major role. But also we are in charge. We have a certain responsibility for our future, for our sustainable future, for our kids and for our grandkids. I mentioned yesterday, 3 months ago, I became a grandfather. We have a responsibility also, not only blaming always the government. But this, yesterday I disposed it as a secret. I don't know, shall we keep it as a secret or shall we ask them to...
Actually,
Who is joining me tomorrow morning?
Actually,
Who is joining? 1, 2, 3.
The shower and the washing machine.
No, there is some easy waste actually to save energy for each customer. Please don't use the standby. You have to switch off your TV and dish and other things as a facility from sources, not to the standby. It will save you about 15% of the loads. This is very simple, I think.
Actually, I took your advice yesterday and asked the guy today to reroute the pipes. So I'm going to test it on one bathroom to see what's going to happen.
We have another pilot here who's joining me.
Actually, a very quite interesting discussion. So it is more, everything is about price, it's about habits, it's about, like you said, Dr. Court, an extremely complex issue in order to get to be an energy efficient country. Comparing ourselves to Germany, which started in the 70s, we have still a long way to go. In this view, Dr. Ibrahim, I want to ask you the following question. What progress has been made towards achieving an energy efficiency policy and a framework in Egypt?
Actually, we'll try to have an energy efficiency agency in Egypt with a German joint committee with, and we already described the function and the actually is how to get money with seed money, for example, from German government, and then make some auditing, and they can sustain sustainable manner. But when it is presented to the cabinet minister, they prefer to have an energy efficiency unit or energy conservation rate with representative from all governments, entity like ministers, for example. But we will have an energy efficiency agency because energy efficiency are without father in Egypt, actually. It's a scattered effort. But we need an agency or bureau or something, energy efficiency, to have collect with all efforts. Because scattered efforts actually without sustainability, each project, for example, when it is ended the activities of the sustainable. We need sustainable energy efficiency agency in Egypt.
This means that we need to have some restructuring to the energy portfolio of the country in general. Would this mean that we need some form of regulator? Actually, we need to understand a very important issue. It's not only about electricity, it's about all forms of energy. Because if we have an inefficient car dating back to the 50s, I'm going to take it from here to Alexandria, it's going to consume 10 times the amount of fuel a modern car with the same capacity is doing today. So we are only constraining ourselves to the discussion of electricity. However, yesterday I had in my mind, but I never asked this question, should the electricity regulator take over this specific energy efficiency supervision or energy efficiency regulation? When I went back home yesterday evening and I thought about this question, which I did not ask, it will become rather complex because there are multitude of energies there. If we can take this as a question and ask our panelists what their idea would be, where to place such an energy efficiency authority or an energy efficiency regulatory body with all the complexities of efficiency. Yes, Dr. Costa.
Well, I don't think Egypt needs to restructure. We have a regulator, and we had a very strong energy efficiency unit, which was headed by Dr. Anha Hegazi, a lady which I appreciated very much, very powerful, very confident. Unfortunately, she has retired half a year ago. And we have a regulator, also with a person, Hafez, he also is not anymore there, also very highly qualified person, to my opinion. The problem is that these institutions, the Energy Efficiency Unit and the regulator, do not have the power which they need to have in order to ensure a cross-sectoral approach. Therefore, we do not need to reinvent the wheel. We need to use the entities which are in place, give them the power to take action. Something very important, I see my friend Mohammed Madihat there. His boss is Mohammed Musa Omran. We have a very interesting approach, and I'm very happy that that became successful. Two ministers, the Minister of Energy and the Minister of Building and Housing, signed on November 30th an agreement, a memorandum of understanding, and I'm very proud and very happy that we could contribute to that. A memorandum of understanding clearly indicating that these two ministries will work together on the implementation, on the enforcement of energy efficiency building code. I consider this approach as a very, very important step forward. Of course, now we have to fill it with life. It will take some time, but the first step is done. I'd like to come back with my picture, which I quoted already many, many times. I consider all of you have a cupboard back at home, and the cupboard has drawers, okay? Now imagine, some of you know my pictures because I'm quoting it already again and again. Just imagine that this cupboard is the government, and the drawers are the ministries. Now, typical for drawers is there is no intercommunication between them. You can get them sometimes communicating. Well, I leave it up to you to how to say, draw the picture to the ministries. But you can get these drawers sometimes communicating with each other, all the ministries, if you open them from outside, trying to link them. And this might also be our task, consultant task or whatever, to bring in the knowledge, maybe from other countries, to link important entities together. Therefore, again, the wheel is not necessary to reinvent it. Take the existing entities and give them the respective power in order to move things forward. And again, it's easy to blame others, but tomorrow morning, please start with collecting water.
Yes,
on
Dr. Yes.
Restructuring, thank you. On the restructuring thing and the need for an energy
Regulator.
agency or regulator, etc. Now, we had the Energy Planning Authority a long time ago, and it was so its demise in 2006. And the idea was whether we will have an energy planning authority, and it was discussed here and there. Now, the issue is that, like in any other place in the world, like in any bureaucracy, you have turfs. You have turfs, and you don't want someone to come and tell you what to do because you know what your job look like, right? So there is an issue there. So we have a kind of a Supreme Energy Council that exists, right? And this is an institution that actually exists. What is missing from the Supreme Energy Council is a technical secretariat and a permanent technical secretariat. It's a small council of ministers, and they have all the power. And they would agree on energy efficiency. They would agree on whatever they want to agree on. So we have this. The point is that there's no one to do the work. So you need a strong technical secretariat, a permanent one, to help the Supreme Energy Council. And I think issue will be resolved.
If I may just because that's exactly, no, but please. That's exactly what's happened in the cabinet. When we discussed the proposal to establish the Energy Planning Committee or agency. Now, the government of Egypt is transforming. Whole Egypt is transforming. A regulator should be a regulator, should not be a producer. The Ministry of Electricity should be a regulator, not a producer of electricity. How could you regulate your own self? This is a conflict of interest. We're going now into a more mature system. Ministries' role are changing. And that's what's happening. And that's what's the reason for that. So there is a new law for electricity. Now you can have your own power station. You can run it. You will have a free market for your price. And if the government want to pay, want to resell it to other customers at a certain place, then it's the issue of the government. So the whole government is transforming. It may be a slow process, but this is a 5,000-year country. I mean, you cannot change everything like that. Sudden changes can break systems. We have to have patience. That's what you have. The energy crisis in Europe happened overnight, but the change did not happen overnight. How many years I was in Germany at that time? And I witnessed the whole energy crisis develop. I was there 77.
For the second oil price.
Exactly, before the second. And it didn't start by government. It started by NGOs. And it started by NGOs that made the awareness and pressured the government. That's how you do it in a democratic system. So the government has a role, but the people motivate the government, and they motivate him to the parliament and to the democratic system. This is where we're heading. But we should refer from looking at the government as our Lord. Government represents and implements what the people want them to do. So the real power is coming from the people and not from the government. And that's what we should realize. It is not a switch that you turn to the right or to the left and the whole system will react. You cannot go now and talk about raising subsidy without looking into the poor. That's absolutely politically unsound. So it's how you do it in a phased approach. It's going to take time. But you know your target. You know what to do to get it. You follow up, and you have a vision, a path, an approach. Same thing goes for the planning. As Mr. Yasser said, and since we work together for over 20 years, so we have common grounds, a lot of common grounds. But yes, this was presented. We discussed it for a long time. We have a Supreme Council for Energy. Supreme Council for Energy, even the Minister of Environment is there. So the Minister of Investment, the Minister of Industry, Minister of Petroleum, Minister of Planning, Minister of Finance, Minister of Local Development, Minister of Environment is within the Supreme Council. And its mandate is to come out with energy policies for all Egypt, for all sectors. This is why you have 7 ministers, more than even 7 ministers in it. And as Yasser said, the problem was that this Supreme Council never had an operational technical secretary that produced the technical work that gets from different ministries, put this together, comes out with options, presented to the minister that they can take a decision. And it's headed by the Prime Minister. It never had a. So we thought, okay, guys, agency is fine. We need a planning agency. We need a director. And we, as government, we will. One option was to make this the technical secretary. Another option is to make it as a technical advisory to the Prime Minister. The Minister of Planning, he was the one that submitted this, took the proposal and is working on it and is going to present it again. But whether we do it through an agency, a new agency, who wants to create a new government agency? This is a burden to the budget. You can't be always, when you find a solution, then we establish a committee, or we establish an agency, or we pass a law. Guys, come on. I mean, we have too much laws. We have too much laws. We're not using the market of the economy. So maybe the Minister of Environment should be not talking too much about economy, but I'm an environmental economist, so I have to see it from this perspective. So thank you very much. I'm not saying that the government should not do anything. I fully agree with you. The government had a leading role, but it takes two hands to clap. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. You actually answered my next question. So I think we will move now to the Q&As of the... no Q&As? All right. Okay. Thank you, Louise. Let's move to the next issue, which is about the COP21. Egypt will ratify COP21 in April, and from...
That's a statement.
Okay. I hope Egypt will ratify COP21 in April. Anyway, we have time until next year, so within a year we can, I guess, ratify it until 2017. Yes. Nevertheless, my colleagues here, could you maybe each of you give...
It is clear. I'm not saying anything. The plan is that we will ratify. So I'm just teasing.
Could my colleagues here give a small insight from each of your individual point of view how energy efficiency will contribute to complying with the COP21 framework? But I would like to take into consideration whilst answering this question that we are not only talking about electricity here. We start with you, Doctor.
Electricity is the final use of energy because there is a primary use of energy taking into consideration gas, natural gas, and fuel and other things. So I think that, as His Excellency Minister said, that we will put a plan with each ministry in order to ratify the COP21 requirements.
Thank you, Doctor. Dr. Court.
I would like to pass on. I do not have a substantial comment on that topic.
I think energy efficiency would be like a very important tool and a contributor for the greenhouse gases reduction. As have been stated before, that at least 20% reduction of energy use in the industry specifically, this would be something very important for Egypt. And what is really also important for the government to work on two levers. One on the existing facilities right now, that there is a lot of opportunities, but also what is also very important to set up some measures for the new facilities that will be built up in Egypt, that they have to be more efficient, and this will on a long run will be more or less has more contribution with this industrialization process in Egypt. This would be very important. So energy efficiency is one of the very important tool contributor for meeting the COP requirements to Egypt.
I don't think I have much to add, but we don't have large options. We are a country of 90 million. We'll be increasing to 100 million in 5 years, and we'll keep on increasing. So our use of energy will have to grow somehow. We need more production, we need more this and that. So you know, leaving COP21 aside, we need energy efficiency for our own good. Our contribution to climate change is minimal. I know we have commitments and we have to meet these commitments, but you know, we're not major contributors to climate change. But for our own good, for a growing country, growing demography, and we want to increase the level of the living standards of the people, etc. So we have no option other than energy efficiency, right? And we have to look into it very seriously. And we actually also want to see whether, as I said in the beginning, whether these type of products are needed or not, and needed by whom, because there's a lot of resources of this country that go to those who can pay for it and throw away and buy again and throw away, etc. When you look at the resources that go for this consuming part of our society, ourselves, right? It's huge compared to what others who are less fortunate consume. We need to look into this too.
Maybe just a small remark also, just even going for renewable energy in Egypt, before to go to renewable energy, we go first for energy efficiency. So it's a very crucial step, even if we are going to have solar heating in the industry. Before giving solution for solar heating, I had to do energy efficiency first to minimize the cost for solar and renewable energy in general. So it's a crucial step even before going to renewable energy.
You remind me of something. I just want to add, you know, energy efficiency in the framework of renewable energy. A few years ago, I think 6 years ago, with my friend Dr. Mohammed Al-Subki, we wrote a nice piece for the Energy Competitiveness Council on our statement was that we have to have a total transformation in the future, definitely not right away, to renewable energy, because this is the way to go. Now, energy efficiency is a very good tool to buy time to this. So these two things are complementary. You cannot think using the same amount of energy or with the inefficiency that you have now and have enough time to do this transformation. You need to buy time. You need to buy time to be able to transform to renewable energy.
Dr. Court.
Just imagine, and I'm very happy about today's workshop. 5 years ago, this kind of workshop would not have taken place. Until 5 years ago, until 3 years ago, the solution for future energy was RE, renewable energy. Now, and I'm happy about that, because since years I'm fighting for energy efficiency, there is a shift, although in the opinion of international donors, towards energy efficiency, also financing energy efficiency. Simply financing energy efficiency is one of the major bottlenecks. It's very, very easy to finance a 100 megawatt solar power plant, wind power plant. You bring the KfW together with the World Bank and some others, and now this is already routine work, you see, and you get the money for 100 million solar plant or wind power plant. But one of you go to your bank and ask them whether you get 50,000 euro for double glassing for roof insulation, because you want to make it energy efficiency. They will ask you energy efficiency, what that? Never heard about that. You see, the banks are not familiar with it. But now there is a certain shift now. International banks, international donors, they are developing tools and instruments, which also not necessary to reinvent them. They have been used. They just have to be disseminated to the different banks, also on the local level, not only on the World Bank level. And this shift has taken place now, and therefore that we have this kind of discussion now about energy efficiency, and these are the low-hanging fruits. Energy efficiency has many, many advantages. Again, low-hanging fruits. It is creating jobs. It makes me a couple of years ago, not anymore, made me always upset when the advocates of renewable energies are coming up with a presentation, renewable creates jobs, renewable energy creates jobs. Completely right. But renewable energy creates jobs in China, where all the solar panels are manufactured. It creates jobs in Germany, in Denmark, and in Spain, where the sensitive parts of wind power plants are manufactured. But it creates only a tiny, tiny number of jobs in a country like Egypt until now, as long as the renewable energy industry is not developed. Whereas energy efficiency creates jobs because all the materials can be manufactured here in this country and can be installed. Therefore, energy efficiency has very high, 4 times as much as renewable energy employment impacts.
I want to add something that the kilowatt hour cost for energy efficiency less 5 times than the kilowatt hour generated by energy generating units. So energy efficiency, low-hanging fruit, it's called low-hanging fruits that you, with no cost, low cost, you can, with minimum cost, you can save a lot of energy efficiency through energy efficiency.
Thank you very much, guys. So I have chosen 5 questions. I don't know whether we have the time. We have the time still? Okay. Dr. Fahmy, one of the questions will go to you before you leave. Can we do that? Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you. The question actually quite interesting. Is there any plan to phase out coal from the cement industry? You know the controversiality about the coal using in the cement industry and so on. If not, what are the...
When will you ask this? Coal and cement, a must. Let me just go back to what our expert was saying. That I'm sorry, I'm fine here. I used to be a professor, so I'm fine. He said that 5 years ago, this kind of workshop would have not taken place. Well, maybe I'm a little older than you, but Yasser and myself, we witnessed the USA project on energy efficiency in industry with the Federation of Industry in the first half of the 90s. EP3. Yes. Why did it not continue? Because of the apparently abundance of natural gas. Because at that time, Egypt discovered a lot of natural gas reserves. And the price was very low, subsidized. So nobody had an interest in going and investing in energy efficiency. Why should you? According to the pure financial economic sense, why should you? Why should I pay more money when I can have the same for less? So these things were buried. Now why are we back into business? It's because of the energy poverty. Energy poverty, or poverty in any resource like water, makes you rethink of how to address this, and in sometimes you have to wipe out old ideas and come with new, what we now say, out-of-the-box solution. It's exactly what's happening in Egypt at the moment. Energy poverty, a challenge, but it has opportunities in it. The opportunities is renewable energy, and the government came out with the feed-in tariff so that we enhance renewable energy. This is one track. Another track is energy efficiency. A third track, let's widen the resources of energy in Egypt. 95% of your energy is coming from fossil, and it's coming mainly from natural gas and petroleum with all its product. This is not even safe from energy security. So you have to switch the energy mix, and this is what's happening. You will go choose all possible economic visible and technically visible options. So this is why coal came. The coal issue was presented, people that work in the Ministry of Electricity knows that this was presented 15 years ago. Studies on this was 15 years ago. But they said, no, we have natural gas and natural gas is abundant and why should we? Now this is not true. So how are we regulating this? First of all, let me tell you that it is not a very easy decision. The decision was taken under conditions that we will follow the EU regulations, that we will strengthen penalties, and we were entrusted in the Ministry of Environment to lay down the regulation. The regulations goes, and you can look up this on the internet. It is forbidden, so says the law, to use coal except in certain activities. 3 of them was already there. Iron and steel, coke industry, and no, not cement. They were there, and aluminium. We were using aluminium. Added was cement and generation of power. And then there are detailed bylaws for each one of them. We think that coal will be phased out, but it's only about time. Just like we're doing with energy efficiency. I'm using time. In cement, there is no alternative for coal. And we have the experts around. Look at the consumption of coal and cement all over the world. More than 70% is using coal. The technique is how you use coal mixed with other alternative fuel, which could be based on RDF, it could be based on industrial, but coal you need for in the cement industry because you need the thermal energy. You cannot operate cement kilns with wind power, nor with sun. Unfortunately, we lack the technique. It's not there. But we still need the cement. So there was no real option. People, and I accept all criticism, but the decision has to be taken at the final. It's not only about dialogue. It's about one of the strategic industries in Egypt. What we can talk about, do we really need that amount of cement? That's what we should be looking at. Or could we use blended cement so as to reduce the amount I need, so as to reduce the amount of energy, so as to reduce coal? But coal is there to come in and come out. Germany. A big debate last summer on using brown coal. Brown coal is the most polluted coal in the world. And using this in the new power generation facilities. Facilities that are working with ultra and super critical and supercritical, which are the up-to-date technologies. And after a big debate, it was approved in the parliament. Well, not yet. But it will phase out. Khalas. So don't tell me not to do this for the Egyptian economy. Okay? They are using the up-to-date. What kind of technologies do we want to use in power generation with coal? The same technologies. These were the agreements that were signed with the Chinese. we will not, and there is no opportunity, technical opportunity, to replace natural powered power station with coal. You can't fuel it with coal. Technically, it's not feasible. This is one technology, and this is another complaint. So all these will be outside, in remote areas. You will burn coal, and you'll transport energy. Each power station on the Red Sea will have its own port. They will be equipped with the most updated technologies. Investors visited us, we discussed, and they now are preparing their studies. So it's phased in, and it will be phased out. Because we need this time so that we can have modern technologies that can replace coal. But coal is not going to be used in all industries. No, sir. This is no way. But it's going to be used in cement, yes, and it's going to be used in electricity. That's it. And in our INDC, and we have the young chaps that produced our INDC, we are taking this in consideration. The only aspect that is with coal is that we quickly upgrade our ports so that it can accommodate the cement the coal that's coming for the cement. As for the coal that's coming for the energy, it's going to be, we'll have new ports. So we don't, this is well handled. The other thing is to turn Dekhela. People know how Dekhela port is. Turn Adabaya and establish a new one in Hamraoui. Totally, completely new technologies. They have 1 year as a grace period to do that. By that, I'm not only enhancing the cement industry, I am developing the ports. I need to develop the ports from an environmental point of view, not for coal, but for clinker, but for sulfur, which is far more dangerous to the environment, and it's not controlled. I'm hitting 3 birds. I shouldn't say 3 birds because I'm responsible for nature. So I'm hitting any other 3 things. Guys, at the same time, I know, guys, especially the young generation, yes, but I'm fully open to give us an alternative that I can use tomorrow. That's what you're facing. That's the decision you have to take. We discussed long, but after we discuss, we have to take a decision. And this is not a decision by one minister. The regulation says that any change should be agreed by all the cabinet. The Minister of Health, Minister of Electricity, Minister of Industry, all ministers. And when we did the regulations, it was expected that we will have, in very near future, a political government. And there is a possibility that from one party comes the Minister of Health, and from another party comes the Minister of Environment, and a third. So I told you, Egypt is changing, and we have to change a lot. So, yes, this is a decision that I tailored, not me, but all the people in my ministry, majority. It took us 9 months of negotiations of these requirements and standards. They are all, I advise you, please, just take the time and read them. I have experts, German experts, that comes each 2 months and take a tour an unplanned tour to cement factories. When they are going, they don't know where they're going. As a dictator, I decide. And I tell them early in the morning, you take your cars and go to Alex, and there you will get your information. Somebody will meet them there. I'll call them and go to this factory. And they write us a report. And I'm going to publish very soon these 2 reports. Because I want to know the people. I want to make the people know. We're not going to hide anything. We're not going to hide. I can't hide anything. If we have a problem, we'll say, this is the problem. This is what we're doing about it. So, Yani, I'm not telling you everything is honey and I wish it was. Then I can maybe even have more times of sleep. Because it is not. We are facing a challenge. We have an old industry. It impacts the possibility of efficiency. Because what we can do is cosmetics. Let's be frank here. Most of our industry are old. And it's not only the dangers of coal. I have other dangers. And they are non-coal fired. So there is enough of environmental problems, but you should judge what has been done to address it. That's your judgment. Not that we have problem. Yes, we have problem. The German had problem in the Rhine. The Rhine used to be in the 80s. I'm old. She didn't see that. I saw it. Okay? The Rhine used to be in the 70s and 80s to be the disposal of Europe, where they got disposed of all their wastes. Now the Rhine are fishing there again. The Potomac in Washington State. You used to have sign on it when you have to walk. Do not eat from the fish that you fish from this river. Now this is not happening. The air pollution in Tokyo in the 60s and 70s. Go to the internet. Use the internet for something different. Go. See how people were and how they had the will and the patience to do it, and they did it. And this is how you do it. You work. You work for it. Enough talk. Enough talk. Let's go to work. Thank you.
Dr. Fahmy, thank you very much. I think it was quite substantial and interesting answer as well.
Such a long...
Actually, it could have stayed longer. I am. Nevertheless, I guess this concludes our evening. And we hope that you enjoyed our discussions tonight. And we look forward to see you in different discussions. We have organized a small dinner outside, so you are all invited to be with us in this dinner. Thank you very much.